ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। त्रैगुण्य विषया वेदाः निस्त्रैगुण्यो भवार्जुन निर्द्वन्द्वो नित्यसत्त्वस्थः निर्योगक्षेम आत्मवान्. Lord Krishna here advises Arjuna as to what he should become. Says Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha. Vedas meaning here the ritualistic portion of the Vedas. Traigunya Vishayaha deals with the samsara, deals with the world, here and hereafter, which is within the realm of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, of which the whole creation is made. Meaning that as far as actions are concerned, they always lead you to results, and and then further birth and death, and thus this cycle of birth and death continues as long as you are pursuing different ends here and hereafter. Nistraigunyo bhavarjuna, and therefore may you become nistraigunya, nishkama bhava. May you become free from desires or cravings. Realizing this fact that a desire will produce, a desire will prompt you to perform an action will bring about definitely a result, but that every result and every enjoyment is going to be limited, and what you are seeking is limitless, and therefore with this understanding, may you become a desire of the limitless, which is a self, rather than becoming desire of the limited ends, nishkama bhava. Nirdvandvo nityasattvastaha niryogakshema atmavan. In that case, you will be able to become nirdvandvaha. You will become free from the pairs of opposites, like the pleasure and pain, heat and cold, and whatever. Nityasattvastaha. When you thus become free from these likes and dislikes, nityasattvastaha, you will enjoy my state of mind, which is sattvic or contemplative state of mind. Niryogakshemaha. And then you will be able to make your mind free from even the anxieties of yoga and kshema. Yoga is acquiring what I don't have, and kshema is protecting what I have. Even through those anxieties, you will become free. Atmavan, and ultimately you will become possessed of a mind over which you have a mastery. Atmavan, you will become alert and thus become prepared for this knowledge. So nishkamo bhava, nirdvandvo bhava, nityasattvasto bhava, niryogakshemo bhava, atmavan bhava. We discussed it yesterday. Now, when this Upadesha is given, nishkamo bhava, may you become free from desire. Meaning, what is meant is, may you become free from the desire to gain these enjoyments and pleasures from the objects of the world. So may you become free from a desire for the objective pleasures. And then alone you will be able to discover the pleasure which is the nature of the self. The idea is that mind can never become free from desire for happiness. But then here what is meant is, yes, your desire for happiness is a genuine desire. Except that, as long as you think that the happiness is away from you, out there, so long you will find yourself searching for the happiness there and running after different objects of the world. And again meeting with only disappointments because, yes, every contact with an object will give you a limited enjoyment. but again will keep you desiring, because every enjoyment is going to be limited, and therefore your craving for that which is limitless will never be fulfilled. So understand that what you are seeking is to be found from within yourself. With that understanding, nishkama bhava. This is, well, if all these actions we are enjoined by the scriptures, all the various actions in life which I am performing, if I have to perform those, and then still Lord Krishna is going to say, may you perform the action all right. Then that will be the upadesha, the teaching that comes in the verse after this. But before that, whenever we say that, may you become free from the desire of the pleasures of the world, then there is always this question that arises, then what will happen to me? Today, at least while performing actions, I am able to enjoy the life to some extent. At least little pleasures of life I do get. And if you say that I should give up those little pleasures of life, then what will happen to me? How will I get my happiness at all? Because still, my understanding is happiness is out there. And therefore, if you are asking me to give up that happiness coming from the objects of the world, all right, then what will I do? I will be completely deprived of any happiness or pleasure in my life altogether. And you say that I should perform actions, and perform actions as an offering to the Lord. All right, what am I going to get by that? I should perform actions not for acquiring the pleasures of the world, but I should perform actions as an offering to the Lord. Okay. But then what do I get? Because if I perform actions to acquire pleasures of the world, at least I get those pleasures. And I have something in my life going on. You say that perform actions not for the pleasures of the world, but as an offering to the Lord. In which case, what for should I perform those actions as an offering to the Lord? This is a question that Arjuna has, and that question is answered in the verse 46. Yavan artha udapane sarvata samplutodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. So two kinds of happiness is there now. And Kathopanishad points out this in terms of the path of Shreyas and the path of Preyas. Shreyascha, Preyascha, Manushyametah. There is one Shreyas and other is Preyas. Preyas is the path of pleasant. So the happiness apparently coming from the objects of the world is called Preyas or the path of pleasant because it is very pleasant to the senses. The happiness that the objects seem to offer is something that is very pleasant or attractive to the senses, and therefore the senses have a natural attraction for them. But this is the path of Preyas. This is what gives you a limited or a fleeting enjoyment. Other is the path of Shreya, and that is the happiness of the self, the happiness of the spirit. So there is spirit and matter. There is apparently happiness in matter, and there is happiness in spirit. Which happiness should we choose? Lord Krishna says, Vishayendriya sanyogat yattadagre mritopamam pariname vishayva tat sukham vrajasam smritam. That happiness that comes as a result of the contact of sense organs with sense objects, meaning the happiness that appears to come from the sense objects, is in the beginning like honey or like nectar. Pariname vishamiva. That which is in the beginning like honey or nectar, but ultimately proves to be visha or poison. Vishayendriya sanyogat yattadagre amrutopamam. So the happiness that comes from the objects of the world, in the beginning, it appears like it is nectar, because it tickles the senses, and it is very pleasant or attractive. But pariname vishamiva. In the result, it only turns out to be like poison. This is called the preyas or the path of pleasant. That the objects appear to promise the happiness. And thus one becomes more and more addicted to that happiness. One becomes more and more dependent upon the happiness. So happiness coming from the objects is like addiction. In the beginning, when one smokes and things like that, looks like there is something there, some tickling is there, some sensation is there. Later on to find out that you cannot do without that, you get addicted to that. Not only does not give you happiness, you cannot do without it. And this is the nature of the happiness coming from the objects of the world. That you become just dependent upon that, it turns out to be poison. Yat tadagre vishamiva pariname mritopamam tat sukham satvikam proktam atma buddhi prasadajam. However, that happiness that comes from the spirit or the self, in the beginning it is like poison, but ultimately it turns out to be like nectar. So to experience the happiness of the self requires, of course, one, to withdraw the mind from the outer preoccupations and acquire an abiding mind, and that alone will be possible for us really to gain that happiness of the self. As long as mind is extrovert, so long it's not possible today. For example, when I sit down and to contemplate or to meditate, all that happens is there is a tremendous amount of activity in the mind. And I just get frustrated. And in 10-15 minutes I just get up because I cannot even stand my own self. So when the mind is extrovert or restless, we find that there is nothing inside. And to control that mind, to make that mind free from its fascinations and preoccupations, and to make it abiding into the self, it takes an effort. And after that effort has been done, then one discovers the joy of the self, which is a natural or effortless joy, which is an abiding happiness. So self or the spirit ultimately gives us a lasting happiness, but in the beginning requires a lot of effort. Because the mind is extrovert by nature, it has a natural fascination for the objects of the world, and therefore naturally it runs out to the object. And it will justify also. The mind is very clever, and therefore will justify its activities in the name of something or the other. This is all wrong. That, these people just do not know how to enjoy life. They just don't know how to work with the world. And therefore all the time they ask you to become free from desires and stuff like that. And thus mind will justify it because it's easy to go out. But ultimately it is all conflict and struggle and strife that the mind does not realize. And therefore, to withdraw that mind, make it quiet and abiding so that it can be centered on the self, and thus it can gain the experience of that peace, of the happiness which is nature of the self. It is going to take some time and effort, but ultimately will prove to be nectar, that one is on the path of attainment of that lasting happiness. So this is called the path of Shreyas, or the path of good. So there is one path of pleasant, other is the path of good. The path of pleasant is the extrovert path, obtaining happiness from the objects. The path of good is the introvert path, gaining the happiness of the self. And here Arjuna's question is like this: Lord, you say that I should give up the craving for the happiness of the objects, then what will happen to me? And then I still perform the actions. What am I going to gain as a result of these actions? Because you say that you perform actions all right, without desiring the result. And perform the actions as an offering to the Lord. So what do I get? Then Lord says, Yavan artha udapane sarvata sampludodake tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatha. Gives here an illustration. Udapanam. So udakam piyate asminiti udapanam. Udapanam means a source of water, like a small well. So udapanam is a limited source of water, like a well. So yavan artha, whatever use or utility or the purpose that a limited source of water serves, like a well. You see, in India this is very common, that very often in summer the river bed is dry, there is no water there. The water generally is there for a few months in a year when the monsoon comes, and in a few months of winter, and then many rivers just get dry. At that time what people do is that they dig these wells in the river bed itself. So there is water level down there. So if you dig for 5 feet or 10 feet or 15 feet, you will get water. And that's how they dig a number of wells right in the bed of the river and get water. And that water serves the purpose of quenching their thirst, and they can use that water for drinking, for cleaning, for washing, and whatever it is. So all that purpose is served by the small wells which are, let us say, dug in the riverbed. Sarvatah samplutodake. When the monsoon, the flood comes, and this whole bed of the river is completely flooded with water. At that time, that water serves all the purpose, that when the river is completely flooded, then whatever purpose was served by all those little wells is more than served by this flooded river, and much more. So the purpose that is served by the small wells is much more than included in the river that is completely flooded. And then you don't have to go for those wells. When you have the river which is flooded, when you have that quantity of water, you don't have to go for those wells. And similarly also, tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. And similarly also, Veda meaning here all the different actions. So it is true that when the river bed is dry, when the heart is dry, there is nothing in there, then we do dig small wells in the dry river bed. And those wells are comparable to small actions that we perform, or actions that we perform, and get those small pleasures out of the various pursuits and different objects. But when the flood comes, when the heart is flooded with knowledge, this is brahmanasya vijanatah, with that heart that was dry so far on account of ignorance, on account of the craving, on account of the mind being extrovert, and therefore there was totally void, and total dissatisfaction or discontentment in the heart, and therefore the person was seeking little or limited joys in the objects of the world. However, when that heart is flooded with knowledge, that case, the joy or the happiness that one gains covers much more than what those little pleasures covered. So what Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna is that if you will perform these actions as an offering to the Lord, you are opening for yourself a source of joy which is limitless. And you are preparing therefore for what we call the flooding of your heart with the joy. Because it is the nature of the self is ananda or happiness. Which happiness at the moment is as though stifled on account of the fact that the mind is extrovert. It is very restless, it is agitated, and therefore there is almost a self-denial of the happiness of the self. When the mind becomes abiding, when the mind becomes tranquil, then slowly and slowly it does discover the joy of the self. And we also know when our mind is quiet for whatever reason, that time we find ourselves happy or content without any reason at all. It is not that our experience is that happiness always has to come from outside. There are times when we find ourselves happy for no particular reason. Or when we go out, as I said, into the nature, there, when the mind becomes quiet, becomes free from all its worries and anxieties and complexes and problems, at that time it becomes tranquil and it does enjoy a sense of happiness or fulfillment without any particular object to enjoy. And thus, we know that when the mind becomes tranquil and quiet and abiding, that there is an experience of peace and joy. And where does that peace and joy come? It comes from the self. And it is that kind of a mind that we wish to acquire. If you acquire that mind, then without any effort, you will be happy. And how to acquire that mind? That is called karma yoga. The purpose of instruction or recommendation, that may you perform actions, may you make the actions not as a means for the limited joys, but may you make your actions as a means for the limitless joy. And this is what Lord Krishna is trying to tell all along, that to perform action is our privilege. But then, what should we be seeking as a result of the action? We have the freedom to perform the action as a means of producing limited results, and we have the freedom to perform the action as a means to produce limitless happiness. When do we produce limited happiness? When an action is performed with a motivation to acquire some external joy. When there is a desire prompted action, it does produce result. We do get joys. No, we don't say that you don't get any joy as a result of achievements. You do. But those joys are going to be all limited. On the other hand, when the very same actions are performed, not seeking any external joy, but when the actions are performed as an offering, then it creates a ground for experience of the joy, which is the joy of the self, and ultimately culminates into what we call the limitless joy. And this is a secret that Lord Krishna is teaching us in Bhagavad Gītā. It is a secret of action. Also the secret of joy. Telling us that joy is not out there, although you feel it is out there. In fact, it is your very nature. And therefore, may you lead a life which becomes a means for discovering the joy which is natural to you. It will be spontaneous or natural joy or happiness. It will be an effortless happiness because it is the nature of self. And Lord Krishna therefore teaches us here the secret or the art or the yoga of discovering that happiness which is the self. So it is said, Tavan sarveshu vedeshu brahmanasya vijanatah. Brahmana here means the one who is a wise man. Vijanatah, one who has the knowledge. He has that amount of happiness that is to be gained by all the different actions. So whatever little happiness that every action produces, all that happiness is more than included by the flood of happiness that the wise man discovers within his own bosom. And so this is the incentive. Arjuna, don't worry. Don't think that you are going to be deprived of happiness in your life. In fact, this is the path of gaining that lasting happiness, for which there will have to be a sacrifice of that limited. It is true that we have to give up the limited, or we have to become free from the fascination of that limited thing in order to discover the limitless. Because mind cannot be simultaneously in two places. It can be either extrovert or it can be abiding. Only when the mind becomes abiding that it will discover the self. As long as there is extrovert out there in the world, so long there is a self-denial. So first, therefore, there has to be this step where we stop denying ourselves, where we discover the present activities of the mind are not in its own interest. That it only brings about what we call a self-disowning or self-denial whenever the mind goes out and seeks this happiness of the objects. Because not knowing what there is within, this poor mind is going out without. It is not its fault. But when will it ever discover? That's the reason why we have to monitor the mind and we have to educate the mind. Not suppress the mind, but we have to constantly educate the mind about the nature of the self. That's why we said that even Karma Yoga also requires a basic understanding of the whole scheme. That what one is seeking is the self. And with that understanding, we slowly make the mind what we call abiding or introvert. And that whole process is called yoga or karma yoga. And therefore, in the verse 47, which is very famous, Lord now gives instructions on karma yoga. Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhuhu mate sangostva karmani. So everybody in India knows this verse. At least first line they know. Karmanye vadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That te adhikarah karmani eva. Arjuna will also ask a question. That Lord, you say that we should perform the action for the purification of the mind so that ultimately I become qualified for the knowledge. It is true that ultimately the fulfillment in life has to come from the knowledge of the self. And therefore ultimately everyone has to pursue that path of knowledge. Then Arjuna may ask this question, why do you engage me into the performance of this action? Why not directly pursue the knowledge? Ultimately, if it is the knowledge of the self which is going to give me the ultimate happiness, why should I not pursue the path of knowledge right away? Instead of going through the action and then giving up the action and then pursuing knowledge, why not right away I engage myself in the pursuit of knowledge? Why not that? Therefore Lord Krishna says, karmanyevadhikaraste. Hey Arjuna, at the moment you are qualified only to perform action. This is specifically told to Arjuna. And also therefore to all the people who are in the category of Arjuna. Te karmanyeva adhikaraha te. Te means for you. Meaning Arjuna and all those who possess a mind, disposition of mind similar to that of Arjuna. And what is that disposition of mind? The mind which is not yet pure. Still, there is in the mind a lot of impurity in the form of what we may call various reactions. Reactions as characterized by likes and dislikes. So as long as there are reactions in the mind, as long as there are likes and dislikes in the mind, so long mind cannot be abiding. Mind will be restless. Mind will be distracted as long as there are likes and dislikes in the mind, naturally. Therefore it is necessary that we have to make our mind what we call abiding or introvert, meaning free from the reactions of likes and dislikes. Therefore, as long as there are these impurities in the mind, here Arjuna, so long your qualification is karmani eva, in the karma alone, in action alone, not in the knowledge. Meaning that one has to gain that emotional maturity before one becomes fit for pursuit of knowledge. So karmani eva te adhikaraha, you are qualified to perform action alone. Okay, Lord, that's good. I have been doing it anyway. Then, ma phaleshu kadachana. But then, you are not qualified in phala, meaning in the result. So, may you perform action all right, but not for acquiring certain results. So, what is the result of an action? Bhoga or enjoyment. So, what generally when you perform the action, what for do you perform action? I perform an action with a desire that may I achieve a certain result so that I become happy. Usually when a man performs action, there is always a desire of a certain result. But what is the ultimate result that we seek? Ultimate result is happiness. So every action is performed as motivated by the desire for some pleasure or enjoyment. It can be enjoyment of the senses, it can be enjoyment of the emotion, or it can be enjoyment of the intellect. It is not that enjoyment is necessarily of the nature of the experience at the sense level. Even possession gives me a lot of joy. I may be a wealthy man. I may not necessarily enjoy my wealth, but I have a great satisfaction that I have a fat bank account, What I possess, this property. And thus there is a great satisfaction of possession. There is also a joy that also one is seeking through performance of action. Often we get different kind of joy. Joy of recognition, joy of name, fame, power. So these are also what we call only objective pleasures or material joys. So joy or happiness is not necessarily from the senses or from the objects of the senses, but happiness also comes from what we call satisfaction of ego, satisfaction of pride. And therefore, usually people perform actions for all these different motivations. It says, ma phaleshu kadachana. May you perform an action not for this kind of result. May you perform an action all right, not as motivated by gaining some kind of a joy, either from some sense objects or from objects of intellect. We have the sense organs of perception, then we have the mind, and we have the intellect. At different levels we have the joys. There are joys at the level of senses. There are joys at the level of emotion. And there are joys at the level of intellect. And man performs actions in order to gain these different kinds of joys. He says, ma phaleshu kadachana. May you perform action all right, but not for seeking these joys. So, karmani evate adhikara. Of course, this is interpreted in different ways. And another nice, beautiful way of interpreting the verse is karmani evate adhikara. You have the freedom in performance of act. Adhikara can be interpreted also as freedom. Adhikara can be understood as qualification. Or adhikara can be interpreted as freedom. That you have freedom in performance of action. Karmani evate adhikaraha. You have freedom in performance of action. Ma phaleshu kadachana. But you do not have the freedom in phala, meaning determination of the result of the action. So this is how also the verse is classically interpreted. That as a human being, you have the freedom in performance of action. So Lord has given us all what we call a free will. Human being is gifted with a free will, which free will is not available to other living beings. Like plants and insects and animals, birds, they do not have a free will. Meaning they do not have the freedom to choose their course of action. Their course of action and the choices are already made for them. Whereas every moment, human being has the freedom to choose the course of his life. And therefore Lord says, as a human being, you have the freedom to perform the action. And that freedom you must exercise. And also, it is a duty to perform the action. That is also what is meant by adhikara. It is your duty to perform the action. Because in every situation, we have a certain choice to make. Every situation makes upon us a certain demand. This kind of a problem is not there for cats and dogs and animals. Because they naturally respond to a situation which is, their response is always right. A cat always behaves like a cat, regardless of what the situation is. Never behaves like a dog. Or behave like a squirrel. Cat will always behave like a cat. A dog always behaves like a dog. Morning, afternoon, evening. At any time you can always predict how a dog will behave. A snake always behaves like a snake. A scorpion, always a scorpion. Not so with a human being. Human being can behave like a scorpion in the morning. Can be like a snake in the afternoon, He can bark like a dog. He can jump like a cat. He can do anything. Because he has freedom to be anything. So living beings other than human beings, they don't have any freedom. Because their nature and choices are already determined. For example, as they say, cat, what is the dinner of the cat? Is already determined for a cat. Therefore, cat has no sense of guilt in that sense. Suppose cat jumps on a squirrel, and makes it a dinner, cat doesn't have any problem at all. There's no sense of guilt. They never do anything wrong because they never go against their nature. A dog does not have a sense of guilt. Cat does not have a sense of guilt. Nobody other than human being has a sense of guilt. While I have a sense of guilt. Kimaham sadhana karvam, kimaham papama karvamiri. Often I regret all my past actions. Why did I do that? Why did I do something which I should not have done? Or why did I fail to do what I should have done? We have what we call the sense of regret. We have what we call the sense of guilt. Because there is a choice. And therefore, we may make a wrong choice. Or we may make a choice as motivated by factors which are perhaps not proper factors. I can be motivated by my self-centeredness, by my selfishness. And therefore, I may hurt other people in the process of making my choices. This choice is given to human beings because he is given a faculty of choice. And therefore, if I am too self-centered and too selfish, it is quite possible that in the pursuit of my happiness and freedom, I may become insensitive to the need for freedom and choices of other people, and therefore I may trample upon the rights of other people. I may hurt other people in the process of my pursuit of happiness. And that creates in me a regret. Sense of guilt. When I find that I did something by which somebody is hurt, somebody is insulted, I made somebody unhappy, and so forth, then there is in me a sense of guilt. So this guilt is a typical human complex. Nobody other than human being has sense of guilt. Therefore they are always free. I am not free. It's my all hurt and guilt constantly bothers me. That's what really binds me. When I am sitting quiet with myself, what happens in my mind? All those hurts and guilts, they immediately start surfacing and make me just miserable. That's the reason why we need television. The cat does not need television. It doesn't need anything, as best as I know anyway. They don't need any source of distraction of their mind because they don't have any hurt and guilt in their mind. They settle their account right away. They don't carry any kind of burden in their mind. They are free that way. But we cannot. We suppress all these feelings or carry all this burden of hurt and guilt in our own mind. And therefore, we need something to relax. We get tired, not necessarily physically, but we get tired emotionally, mentally, and therefore we need a relief. Therefore we own so many escape distractions. Because I just cannot remain with myself. Give me 15 minutes of quietude. You think that I'll enjoy that quietude? I will tell people, I close my doors, not available, But what do you think I'm doing in there? You think that I'm relaxed and sitting and meditating? No way. Give me 15 minutes, I'll switch on TV. Give me 15 minutes, I'll dial a telephone. I'll pull out a newspaper. I'll do something. I have to keep myself busy or engaged because I just do not have that relaxation, that leisure in my mind that I can even enjoy a few moments of quietude. While all the animals, they all enjoy that leisure. They're happy with themselves. I find I'm not a happy person even with myself. There is this problem of not accepting my own self. They don't have these problems. That is why this kind of discourses and temples are necessary only for human beings. The cats and dogs, they don't have this kind of problems, They don't require any teachers and they don't require any instructions or universities at all. Because their nature is, everything is already decided for them. You may call it good thing or you may call it bad thing, whatever it is. Sometimes we wish that I had better been an animal rather than being a human being, They seem to be so free. Here you don't see many animals, but in India you see animals. You see buffaloes and donkeys and camels and all kinds of things on the street. And when you look at them, you really feel that this camel does not seem to have any care in the world. It's just looking up and going in its own way, so happy. I'm so worried tomorrow I have a test and day after tomorrow I have this and day after tomorrow then I have to do this and thus I'm always anxious and worried and always excited. The camel seems to be always relaxed, The buffalo seems to have no care in the world at all. Sometimes you go to work in the morning and you see a buffalo sitting there in the water, this muddy water. Buffaloes enjoy water. You come home in the evening at 6 o'clock and you find the buffalo still sitting there quietly. It seems to have nothing to accomplish. It seems to be quite happy with the way things are. Not that we want to become buffaloes, but then we sometimes are envy of them. I wish, a buffalo seems to be happier than I am, because it is not a care in the world. So this kind of a problem seems to be there with a human being, that there is what we call the problem of this guilt, problem of something right and something wrong. This question of right and wrong is there only for the human beings. For other living beings, there is no right and no wrong. All of them are automatically right because they do not make a choice. It is God or the Creator who has made a choice for them. And so, a cow does not have a problem whether to eat grass or to eat something else. It doesn't have to, in the morning, need not go through a conflict. Here, every morning we have to decide, what am I going to eat for my lunch and dinner? And then further conflict, whether should I eat meat or this vegetarian food or what should I do? Cow does not have any conflict. It is vegetarian and thus it is happy. The owner of the cow has a conflict, whether to eat cow or to eat grass, Cow doesn't have any conflict at all because, as I say, they don't have this kind of freedom of choice. And therefore, when the choice, freedom is not there, there is no responsibility also. So they have no responsibility. Human being has a free will. And whenever freedom is given, it must always be accompanied by responsibility. Freedom can always be abused. And therefore, there is a need for what we call regulation of the freedom. When I have a motor vehicle with me, I have the freedom to drive on the road all right. I can drive at any speed in any direction I want. But when that freedom is there is a need that the freedom must be monitored. And therefore we have the traffic regulations. And we have the roads, the rules and regulations of driving on the roads. Otherwise, there will be tremendous chaos. I think within 2 days everybody will destroy everybody else if they are given this freedom. And so freedom can always be abused. Human being alone is the freedom. So Lord Krishna says that you have the freedom of choice and therefore you must own up that freedom. Karmanye vadikaraste, that may you perform an action so that you do not abuse your freedom. In the 3rd chapter, Lord Krishna is going to say, Niyatam kuru karmatvam. May you perform what we call niyatam karma. Karma or action that is in keeping with niyati, in keeping with the order of the world. As we said, beings other than human beings, they automatically are in harmony with the order of the creation. Human being has a choice, either to be in harmony or to create a disharmony. A human being can pollute the environment. He can abuse things. He can create a disharmony. Recently, I just read yesterday, in Washington, some place have dumped hundreds and thousands of gallons of this radioactive waste, so many years ago. And thus we can do that. And what consequences it will have, nobody knows. We can pollute the water and environment, everything we can do. Because we can always abuse our freedom. Because we can be self-centered. And for the interest of the human beings, we can destroy the nature. Says, therefore, may you perform the action that is in keeping with the obtaining order in the universe. So that is called niyatam kuru karmatvam. So same thing is meant here. Karmanye vadikaraste. It is your duty to perform an action that is in keeping with this order. You have a freedom of choice. And may you not abuse your freedom of choice. May you properly utilize your freedom of choice so that the actions that you perform, they don't hurt you. Violence automatically comes here. That in exercising a freedom of choice, may you not violate anybody's rights. Don't violate the rights of nature, don't violate the rights of other human beings, don't violate the rights of other living beings, and don't violate your own rights. This is what we call dharma or the order. So Lord Krishna is saying here that it is your duty to perform an action that is in keeping with dharma or the order of life. Therefore there is something right and something wrong as far as a human being is concerned. There is nothing right and nothing wrong as far as other living beings are concerned because they are automatically right. They don't seem to have a freedom of choice and therefore their actions are already chosen for them. Since I have a freedom of choice, I can do something which is right or I can do something which is wrong. If there is no order, there is nothing right and nothing wrong. Suppose there was no traffic regulation at all, whether you should drive on the right or left or what it is, then driving left also will be right, because there is no traffic regulation at all. But when there is a traffic regulation, then driving right alone is right and driving left will be wrong. Or in India, driving left will be right and driving right will be wrong, you see, because there is a regulation. So where there is an order, then alone there is a question of right and wrong. There obtains an order in the universe and human being is a part of this creation and therefore there is something right and something wrong. So when you perform an action, it is your responsibility to make sure that your actions are in keeping with the obtaining order. That is what is meant by saying karmanye vadikaraste, that it is your adhikara or it is your duty to perform actions which are in keeping with dharma or the order of life. Ma phaleshu kadachana. But then you do not have the choice to determine the result. That also is natural. Or we may say that ma phaleshu kadachana. May you not perform actions as motivated by the result or motivated by the enjoyment of the gaining the limited pleasures of the objects, but may you perform an action as motivated by an offering to the Lord. Mate ma karma phala hetur bhuhu. And therefore, karma phala hetuhu ma bhuhu. May you not become the hetu or the cause of karma phala. May you not become an author of the result of the action. Whenever you perform an action as motivated by the desire for the result, then you become the creator of the result. If you perform action without the expectation of any result, In that case, you do not become the creator of the result, you are only creator of the action. And Lord is the creator of the result. When you perform an action as motivated by the creator, the result, then you become the creator of the result. Lord Krishna says, may you not become the creator of the result. May you only become the performer of the action. Then Arjuna may naturally ask the question, suppose I have to perform an action without expectation of the result, why should I perform an action? Usually a utilitarian mind will ask the question that if I have to perform an action without any expectation of a result, why should I perform the action? I may keep quiet, I may take it easy. Says, no, mate sangostu karmani, akarmanite sangha mastu. May you not have attachment for akarma, or may you not have attachment for laziness. May you not have attachment for the withdrawal from action or copying out of the action. Nishkriyata. Nishkriyata meaning avoiding action. So may you not have attachment for avoiding action or non-performance of action. Meaning actions you must perform. Action is an expression of the energy of the human being. As we said, human being is a very privileged being. Human being enjoys many privileges. This body has been given to me, the mind has been given to me, the intellect has been given to me. All these things are given to me. And as we have said many times earlier, there are so many obligations I have. I have the obligations of the parents and the teachers that they have given me this body. I have the obligations of all the sages and the rishis, the teachers, that they have given me all this knowledge. I have the obligation of the devatas that God has created this universe. And the universe constantly serves me. And therefore, I have the obligation of all the different natural forces, which are what we call devatas or gods. And therefore, I have this obligation. And therefore, I must be aware of this and constantly be active in fulfillment of the obligation that I have. So, person does not have right to withdraw from action. The fact that I am alive shows that I am receiving the favor from the rest of the world. And therefore, it is my duty to return that favor. Mate sangostu karmani. May you not be attached to, or may you not cultivate a desire for withdrawal from the action. Meaning, may you not remain actionless. Niyatam kuru karmatvam karmajjayohya karmanaha. Instead of remaining inactive, it's better to perform an action motivated by desire. If you think that you are going to give up the action, Lord Krishna will say, okay, perform any action you want, with whatever desire, but perform action. Don't be lazy, don't remain inactive. Sharira yatra pichate na prasiddheda karmana. If you remain inactive, sharira yatra pichate na prasiddheda. In fact, you cannot sustain your body. You cannot even sustain your life if you remain inactive. And therefore, don't remain inactive, always remain active. And preferably, may your activities be without the expectation of a reward. If you cannot rise to that level, all right, perform expectation with reward. Okay, but definitely not remain inactive, because you will get rusted and you will become totally useless. Ultimately, as we said, our life is sustained because we are receiving favor from the universe. If you don't return that favor, you stop receiving that favor. And slowly you will find that your life also cannot be sustained. So one must therefore be always active with this understanding that I must always return the favor. I must always do the best I can with whatever energy, abilities, talents are given to me. All of them must be put to what we call creative use, and they should not be allowed to be wasted or rusted away. Mate sangahastu karmani. This is a very famous verse where 4 instructions are given. It is called Chatusutri of Karma Yoga. There are 4 sutras or aphorisms given here. Karmanyevadikaraste man, ma phaleshu kadachana 2, ma karma phala heturbuhu 3, mate sangostu karmani 4. Some people call it the Chatusutri of Karma Yoga. So these are 4 aphorisms the Lord gives us to keep in mind, bear in mind while performance of action. Okay. Om Purnamadah पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।